Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You have joined the meeting as an attendee and will be muted throughout the meeting. The host would like you to unmute your microphone. You can press *6 to unmute. You are unmuted.
You. The City of Riverbank City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority Board meetings are now in session. Today is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. The time is 6:04 p.m. This meeting will be held in accordance with the California Government Code Section 54953 Subdivision Echo of Ralph M. Brown Act, California Government Code 54950 et sec. The Federal Americans with Disabilities and recent Stanislaus County Health Officers Mandatory Face Covering Order, September 2nd, 2021. While this meeting will be physically open to the public, given the state of emergency regarding the threat of COVID-19, members of the public may also participate and comment via Zoom virtual platform. Refer to the last page of the agenda for participating information. Please rise. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Before I have Reverend Neal come on up, I'd like everyone to take a moment for Alan Trawick, who just recently passed. He's former mayor, council member, citizen of the year, local businessman, and superb individual. Reverend Neal.
Let us pray. Thank you, Heavenly Father, Jesus, for this wonderful day that you've provided for us. We know, Heavenly Father, Jesus, that each one of these elected officials, as they make the decisions, they'll make the best decisions for the citizens of Riverbank. Heavenly Father, we just ask that you put your ever-loving arms around them and keep them in your grace. Heavenly Father, tonight, when each decision is made, that even though that we're different people and we have a different opinion on different things, Heavenly Father, we just pray that things can come together. And when something is not the way that one would like for it to be, but the way it has to be, we just ask that you put your grace upon it. We thank you for this day, and we give you the praise and worship. And let each one of us just remember, it's through your everlasting life that we stand here tonight, and we give you the thanks. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Council Authority Member District 2, Rachel Hernandez. Here. Council Authority Member District 3, Cal Campbell.
Here.
Council Authority Member District 4, Darlene Barber Martinez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chair Luis Uribe.
Here.
Mayor Chair Richard D. O'Brien.
Here. There are no changes to the agenda. Any council authority member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Seeing none, we're going to move on to public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For those who are visiting us via Zoom, please refer to the last page of this agenda for public comment procedures. Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, do we have anyone on Zoom wishing to speak?
Mayor, there is no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments.
Thank you. We're going to move on to presentations. The first one is item 8.1, Proclamation Hispanic Heritage Month. Father, if you will join me up here at the podium. I want to thank you for taking the time out for today, as this is important not only to the citizens of Riverbank, but all the Hispanic individuals who have contributed greatly to our great country. The City of Riverbank Proclamation, Hispanic Heritage Month, October 2021. Whereas the City of Riverbank is committed to continuing to build a welcoming and neighborly community, embracing diversity and fostering equality for every resident. And whereas Latinos, and Hispanics have enriched the Riverbank community and play a vital role in Riverbank's economy and workforce with cultural, educational, and political influence. And whereas residents of Latino and Hispanic origins make up 57% of the city's population, making it the largest race or ethnic minoritized group in the city, whereas Latinos and Hispanics Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the vibrant traditions of people whose ancestries can be traced to Mexico, Central America, Caribbean islands, South America, and Spain. Whereas the Hispanic community has had a profound influence on our city through their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service. And now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Riverbank hereby proclaims October 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month and invite all to celebrate the contributions that have been made to our city, our community, by Hispanic Americans. Signed this day, the entire City Council. Father, if you will, please take this on behalf of the City Council.
Yeah, thank you.
That's why you're up here.
Okay. Okay, so now we're having margaritas for everyone. No, just very quickly. I want to thank everyone, City Council, for recognizing the Hispanic community. There are many contributions, as the mayor said. I think one of the strengths of our city, of our country, of any religious institution is our diversity. One of the things that this pandemic has taught us all is that we are all interconnected, that we need each other, that we can accomplish more when we come together than when we are divided. The Catholic Church is committed to serving everyone, is committed to the common good, so that in that way we can give a little bit of hope to people, especially in these difficult times. So thank you again.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Yes, Father, Father. You don't get away that easy. I'd like to have all the council come on down. We'd like to take a picture with you, so we can put it on
I thought I was getting a check.
Never mind. That's where we're running to get margaritas.
Yeah, I know.
Come on over here.
Okay.
Let's put Father between Darlene and Luis.
I'm vaccinated, okay?
Try to get him in the middle. Get squeeze between Luis and Darlene. Father. Darlene, get over here. We're balancing it out. Okay? Here we go. Okay, you got it? I am.
Yeah. Some of us look better with the mask. You know?
1, 2, 3.
I'll go get things.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, you can go get the margaritas.
Bring them out.
Okay, the next one is going in recognition to National Code Enforcement Appreciation Week. And if Michelle Garcia come on up here, please. This is an extremely important and sometimes very, I want to say, pushed aside task that you have. A lot of people do not like code enforcement, but we have to be able to live within our own rules that we established and that we have everyone comply at least to a minimum standard. The City of Riverbank Proclamation, National Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week. Whereas the state of California has proclaimed the second week of October as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week, and whereas code enforcement officers provide for the safety, health, and welfare of Riverbank citizens through the enforcement of local, state, and federal laws and ordinance dealing with various issues of building, zoning, housing, animal control, environmental, health, and life safety. And whereas code enforcement officers have challenging and demanding roles and often do not receive the recognition for a job they do in improving the quality of life for residents and businesses of the local communities. And whereas the role of many code enforcement officers have expanded in recent years, with jurisdictions increasingly relying on the expertise and training of code enforcement officers and their communities. Whereas code enforcement officers are dedicated, highly qualified, and highly trained professionals who share the goals of preventing neighborhood deterioration, enhancing communities, ensuring safety, and preserving property values through knowledge, training, and application of housing, zoning, and nuisance law. Whereas code enforcement officers often have a highly visible role in Riverbank and regularly interact with the public and a variety of federal, state, and county and local officials in their capacity as code enforcement officers. Whereas the City of Riverbank wants to recognize and honor the code enforcement officers that serve our community and acknowledge their role in leading the way to improve quality of life within our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Riverbank hereby proclaims the second week of October 2021 and annually thereafter be known as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week in the City of Riverbank. And be it further resolved that the City Council calls upon Riverbank residents to join in recognition and expressing their appreciation for the dedication and service by the neighborhood improvement officers who serve as our code enforcement officers. Signed today by me, and I want to thank you for doing the job that you're doing.
Thank you.
And here, this is for you. Can we get a picture of this? And if you also want, you have the podium.
Thank you.
You got that? There, one more.
Oh. One.
Thank you. Thank you. There you go.
Thank you.
And now those pictures are going to go into the local paper, and we're going to be damned for it.
Yeah. Good evening, Council. I just want to take a minute to thank Mayor O'Brien and Council for taking the time out to show your appreciation and support for our Neighborhood Improvement Division. It's been a very long year so far. Last year we had a total of 607 cases. So far this year we're at 602 with, about 2.5 months to go in the rest of the year. So again, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to changes coming in the near future in our department, and wishing everybody a safe and happy rest of the year. Thank you so much.
Thank you for what you do.
And Mayor, if I may, just because she didn't mention it, but what I think is really important to know is that Michelle, we've had some part-time code enforcement help periodically, but for a very long time now, Michelle has really been the lead on almost all code enforcement matters. And what I think is really special about her is that she resolves the vast majority of them without having to cite folks, by just talking to people. And it's a skill that you just can't get until you've done the job for a really long time. And so I just want to add that in there because a lot of people don't know that. But we have a full-time person starting here very soon, so there will be more help. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for those comments. And again, Michelle, thank you. Item 8.3, introduction of Assistant Finance Director Tammy Alcantor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to ask Maricela and Tammy to come up. And I'm going to have Maricela introduce Tammy and give a little background.
So Mayor and City Council, this evening I have the pleasure of introducing Tammy Alcantor to the City of Riverbank residents, as well as to all those that are here with us tonight. Earlier this year, we had our accounting manager who moved on to a different agency, and that provided both Sean and I an opportunity to make some strategic changes to the organization of our finance department in order to accommodate for a lot of the growth that we're going to be experiencing with the next couple of years. With that, we were able to make some modifications to the job duties and the job description of the accounting manager position and transform that into the assistant finance director. It's with great pleasure that I introduce Tammy to you today, who comes to you with almost 20 years of experience in municipal government. So with that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. I'm very excited. You know, I decided to grow my family. I have a family in Escalon that I worked with, but I'm so eager to get to know my family here in Riverbank and do good things with the city. So it is my pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with the city.
And we are grateful and thankful too, and I know Maricela is too. Thank you very much,
Thank
Tammy.
you.
Moving on to the consent calendar, consistent of item 9.1, waive readings. Item 9.2, a resolution approving an appropriation request from the Public Benefit Fund in the amount not to exceed $35,000 to fund office equipment and furniture for the creation of an office space within the Riverbank Police Services Building. Item 9.3, approval of the September 28th, 2021 City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority Board minutes. Do I have anyone wishing to pull or comment on any of the consent calendar items?
Mayor, I do have to comment on the minutes. What item was it? I'm sorry, I don't have the item. But in the minutes, we had a public hearing in which we did not receive Mrs. Evelyn Halbert's comments prior to considering the matter. And so I assured her that I would enter it into the record, and I have done that in the minutes that you're approving. So I want to make sure that you're going to approve them with that amendment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there anyone from the public wishing to comment on the consent calendar? Seeing none, I bring it back for consideration by the council.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as stated.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Council Authority members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chair Uribe,
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Moving on to a public hearing. Item 10.1, public hearing 2020 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan Public Draft Review.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We are very excited to present this document this evening. This has been a significant amount of work, primarily for Neil with KSN, who's here this evening, to develop this plan, which there's a number of reasons why it's important to have beyond the requirement that we have one. One is grants, and there's a variety of others that we'll go through. But the thing that I think is most important about it is it really shows data as it relates to our water levels and our aquifer. And so when we're having these discussions about whether it be growth or new water projects, we're making decisions based on actual analysis and data and not anecdotal thoughts about whether there's water or not water in our system. And so Neil's going to give a presentation, a few slides kind of detailing the report and some of the conclusions they came to, and then he'll take questions. Oh, and excuse me, I'm required to read something because there is a slight change to how we typically do items that's related to some language in the statute as it relates to an urban water management plan. So we have a translator here this evening, and her name is Saida. And Saida, if you'd like to come up, she's going to introduce herself and let the public know that if our services are needed during the meeting, that we have them available.
Hello, good evening. My name is Saida Sanchez. I will be your Spanish interpreter. And I'll just repeat myself in Spanish. Buenas noches, gracias por tenerme aquí. Me llamo Saida Sánchez. Voy a ser su intérprete en español si hay alguien que necesite mis servicios. Gracias.
Thank you.
So if there's anyone here this evening that needs that service, please let Saida know and we'll get you set up. And if not, she'll be here for the remainder of the meeting if anyone needs that service later.
Thank you. Welcome again.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Neil Cowell with KSN, and it is my pleasure to be here in person to present the draft Urban Water Management Plan, the 2020 update to the Urban Water Management Plan. What we are recommending to the council here tonight is a two-step process. First, to consider the draft Urban Water Management Plan. I'll do a brief presentation, hit on the highlights of the document itself, be open to any questions or comments that the council may have, and then recommend that you go into a public hearing, receive any comments from the public that the public may have. At the conclusion of the public hearing, then I certainly would be able to answer any questions that the council would want me to answer, and then would be looking for direction at that point for any changes that the council would like us to make to the document. We would then make those changes to the document, bring it back. I believe it's the 28th, the meeting of the 28th, for council approval and adoption of the Urban Water Management Plan at that point. So I'll just go through a brief summary of the document here. So the Urban Water Management Plans, these are required to be updated every 5 years, and so you will typically update those on the 2020, 2015, or the 5 and 0 years. Usually it's about a year behind that you're actually presenting the document to the board or council for adoption. So as you see here, we're working on the 2020 plan, which is being considered for adoption here in 2021. I'll go to the next slide. Do I have a... just to go through a couple of requirements of the plan. The Urban Water Management Planning Act was originally established in 1983, and it applies to what are called urban water suppliers. And so those are water systems. So it can be a city, it can be a special district, it could be an entity that does wholesale water that supplies either of these two criteria, either more than 3,000 acre-feet of water per year or serves more than 3,000 customers. And so City of Riverbank, you are above that threshold, both from the volume perspective as well as the number of customers. So you're required to prepare urban water management plan. Some recent changes that were applied to the Urban Water Management Plan Act include the 2009 SBX 7-7 requirements, and that established a set of criteria for a minimum 20% reduction in urban water use on a per capita basis by the year 2020. And so we are in the status of evaluating whether or not the city has met that objective, and I'll jump ahead, and you have met that objective. You've exceeded it. Another recent requirement is to prepare and adopt under a separate action the water shortage contingency plan, which is a part of the Urban Water Management Plan. So when we come back on the 28th, you'll have two actions. You'll have an action to adopt the Urban Water Management Plan itself and the water shortage contingency plan that's part of that document. Okay, next slide. So through the preparation process, we start off with a minimum 60-day notice to any cities or counties within the water purveyor's service area. Since you yourself are the city that serves yourself, you don't have to notify yourself of the preparation of the update. But since you are within Stanislaus County and then adjacent to San Joaquin County, we did provide notice within the 60-day time frame to both Stanislaus, San Joaquin County's public works directors of the preparation of this update. The basis of our update of this document is we will take and build upon the previous documents, and it's a fairly strict format that we have to follow that's defined by the Urban Water Management Planning Act and then Department of Water Resources guidance and guidelines in terms of the tables and how we address the data. So we will continue to build upon historical documents, update those with new information regarding water use, water supply availability, and then new projections. In this case here, as this document was prepared in draft, we did have it available. The city did have it available on the city's website on September 28th, and it's as well as hard copies have been available. I believe the 29th they're available, and then notices have been posted regarding this tonight's hearing as well. Okay, next slide. So a couple uses or requirements, if you will, of the urban water management plan. The city is required to have this document, but the requirement in terms of a mandate is not super strict. It's if the city were not to prepare an urban water management plan, then you would be limited to some opportunities that you would have regarding grants or low interest loans for water and wastewater facilities. So it is a requirement if you were to pursue funding for water, wastewater types of projects that you have an adopted and updated urban water management plan. So that's a benefit to the city here. These documents are allowed to be relied upon under CEQA considerations. So as you have development projects that exceed certain thresholds, and the city is required to do water supply assessments, water availability assessments, the urban water management plan can be used to meet those requirements. So there's a benefit in terms of the orderly consideration of growth within the city. And then it's as a document itself, it's a good document to refer to in terms of where the city's been, in terms of your use, where the city is looking to be in the future in terms of water use and water availability. And you continue, again, on a 5-year basis, make those evaluations to see what the trends are. Okay, next slide. A couple changes from the 2015 Urban Water Management Plan, and these are requirements that came through and changes in the guidelines. Because of the extended drought that we've been in, the guidelines in the Urban Water Management Plan Act have required us to extend the analysis of water availability from a 3-year, multiple-year dry period to a 5-year period. So we've incorporated that into our analysis. There's additional drought risk assessment that needs to be done, which we've included in this report. We need to report energy use information. Again, that's been included here as well. And then some other more prescriptive, kind of detailed approaches that we need to take in terms of preparing the water shortage contingency plan, which we've incorporated into the document as well. Okay, next slide. So some numbers out of the plan. We want to just give you some highlights in terms of the outcomes of the document. One key component of the document is to make a population projection for 20 years into the future, what the expected population would be using the water system. And so we've looked at the city's historical growth rates. We've used a 1% growth projection here to project a population out to the year 2040 of about 30,500 residents. And so what we do with that information is we also project what the water uses would be by sector. And so the below table there, table 4-3, it identifies a projection of water use by sector within those timeframes out to the year 2040. So right now, the city's using just under about 4,000 acre feet per year of water. We're projecting that by the year 2040, that's going to go up to about 5,300 acre feet per year. Okay, next slide. So when we look at the demand projections, we match that up with the supply projections. This table here, so the table 5-3 or 6-3, it's a little odd because the demands match the supplies. And then when we look at a groundwater system, particularly a groundwater system like the city has, you have multiple wells that if we were to add up the production capability on an annual basis of all of your active wells, you can produce more than 15,000 acre feet per year of water. But you don't, because you don't have that demand. Right now, your system is using around 4,000 acre feet per year. So when we look at the projections of production or availability, we look at what's going to be used and see whether or not that is above or below your available water supply. So in this case, we're projecting out to the year 2040 that your groundwater supply will be able to meet your demands out to that projection. This does consider some water use reductions under multiple dry years, where under drought conditions you would implement drought management measures, and that would have a reduction in water demands, which would help the supply condition. But really overall, what we're seeing is the city's groundwater supply really is robust and is available to accommodate your future, certainly to the year 2040 and beyond. Now, under item 4 here, this is our evaluation of the city's position with respect to meeting that water use reduction goal. In 2005, the interim goal was established by the city at 182 gallons per person per day. In 2020, that goal was updated to 165 gallons per person per day. Right now, the current 2020 use is 157 gallons per person per day. So you are exceeding that 20% reduction goal that was established based on the 2015 and then projected 2020 data. So your efforts in terms of education, water conservation, modernization of facilities, et cetera, is paying off in that respect. Next slide. So under the drought risk assessment, we're required to evaluate a variety of parameters. Overall, our conclusion is that your system, based on relying on the local groundwater aquifer that is recharged by the adjacent river, that over a 5-year period, that your availability of groundwater to your system is not reduced. You will have benefits under multiple drought year condition in terms of reduction of water use. They'll have benefits, but the availability of the water supply we're finding is adequate. Okay, next slide. So some next steps, as I mentioned here, as I conclude this presentation, be happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Then you would go into a public hearing, receive any public comments at that point, and give direction to staff to either answer some questions or address those comments. And then we come back for the October 26th presentation of the final document for consideration and adoption. Again, it would be 2 actions at that point. So at this point, I think any questions that the council may have.
Are there any questions before we go to a public hearing?
Yeah, I got 2 questions, and I'll make a quick comment. We can go back a couple slides to the first major conclusion slide. So one of the questions I have, and I'll wait till you pull it up, so we can so the audience can kind of see what I'll be discussing. Go back one more. It'll be the first major conclusion right there. So in the demand projection section there, so just out of curiosity, so the line items, losses. So I understand that, part of that's due to leakage, illegal water use, and stuff like that. Are there other unique measures that you've seen to address those kind of losses?
The losses here, there's a methodology to go through and estimate these losses. There's factors that come into play, and I was surprised they seem to vary quite a bit with the city's numbers. I couldn't quite put my finger on why. I didn't see that in consultation with your staff, didn't see that there were major changes in terms of system operation that could predict that. One source of loss may be fire water. So I have some water systems where the fires come through and you see a huge loss because, well, that's where the water is used. Continuing to track that information and seeing the trends is important. Some things that the city could do to manage that would be to have some active water leak measurement. So either their own staff with a certain equipment, or there are contractors that do this that can go and track and try and find leaks. Usually what you'll do with that, though, is if you come higher than a threshold, and if you have a kind of a high loss that is causing you concern, you would then go in and start to expend some of those funds to try and track those down and correct them.
Gotcha. And my second question, so hypothetically, say like some of the other municipalities, say they start to increase their volume as far as like development, what's that going to look, how's that going to affect Riverbank if we're, pulling from the same pool?
Yeah, so what we looked at, there's kind of two parts, two answers to that question. One answer is being developed, and that answer is part of the groundwater sustainability plan that is currently being developed, and the goals and objectives of that plan to maintain certain levels of availability of groundwater in the aquifer. So that's a forthcoming element. What we looked at, I feel, is a conservative analysis where we've looked at historical trends, which have had a downward trend. We've taken those trends, and even though a good example, prior to 2016, steady downward trend of groundwater levels in terms of the groundwater. If you stopped your pumps, the water level was lower and lower. We saw that declining, and then 2016, a wet year, came up very dramatically and quickly, and then it started to go back down because we had that wet year. It was kind of a blip. So we analyzed the groundwater level data and projected it out as though we were going to continue into that 2040 time frame. So 20 years of a continued drought, which I think is very conservative. Evaluated that with respect to the ability of the wells to produce water, and our conclusion was that this system is adequate to continue to supply waters as the city needs.
Got it. Okay.
Now there will be some, as the city grows, there's some need for additional wells that come into play, but that's more to meet the peak day demands than an annual average.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then just a quick comment, something that I think that may help if we're trying to continue to conserve water and keep dropping that 157, the gallons per capita water use number. I think a turf drought residential program would knock that number down quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Neil.
Yep. I have a question. On the population chart there, it says 2040, 30,549. What happens if we, say, exceed that and, say, by 2030, we're closer to that 3549? How does that affect our program?
Well, it brings the demands closer, certainly in time. Mm-hmm. The part of my answer really is within the procedure of the urban water management plan preparation, where it prescribes how we do this. And so its requirements are 20-year projection, mm-hmm. availability of supply. We look at the historical data to support that. So in part, I don't have the answer, but if that population increase happens sooner, then your demands go up and they start to use the resource more. In general, I would compare that with again the 5,300 gallon or 5,300 acre feet per year compared to the city's water supply capability from groundwater is about 15,000 acre feet per year. So it's a little bit less than, it's about 3 times what that demand would be. So if population increase happens sooner and demands increase sooner, we wouldn't see a concern or reduction in the ability of the city to meet those demands.
We just have to reevaluate the population to make our chart correct,
exactly,
right?
And then
okay, no penalties or anything,
a subsequent plan would update that, reassess. You might have to go into developing a couple of wells sooner than you would have otherwise per the water master plan.
Plus, this is redeveloped.
Thank you.
Plus, this is looked at every 5 years. So in 2025, you're going to say, hey, we're exceeding it. So now we just adjust our numbers out to 2045 with the increased projection.
Correct.
I have a question. Okay, so You talked about multiple years of drought, which is what we have been experiencing off and on. And how does the drought affect our quality of water?
Another complicated question. Riverbank, I live in Lodi, and Riverbank and Lodi are very similar. We're adjacent to recharging rivers. And those recharging rivers recharge with high quality water. Both communities benefit from that high quality water and the recharge from that. What we are seeing with, and it's more dramatic in other areas where you get a little bit more distant from those recharge zones, those rivers that recharge the groundwater. We are seeing that in zones that are dramatically depleting groundwater levels are dropping very dramatically, that you are seeing changes in water quality. You're seeing cases where constituents such as arsenic, not so much nitrate, but certainly arsenic, iron, and manganese have come up. I wouldn't expect that here to be a dramatic effect as we're seeing in other areas of the Central Valley. Some of the other water quality issues, groundwater quality issues, are from other activities that are unrelated to drought conditions.
Thank you.
My only recommendation before I put it out for a public hearing is update the maps.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Any other comments before I go to public hearing? This is a public hearing. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Your remarks will go into official records. Seeing none, do we have any in the Zoom?
Yes, we do. Let me. Hello, can you hear us?
You're muted.
Why are they muted?
What do they unmute with? *6 or?
Open.
Open?
With *6 or? Hello?
Hello, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, go ahead and introduce yourself. Hello, go ahead and introduce yourself. I'm getting echoes. I'm getting echoes.
Evelyn, you need to turn down your television if that's what you have us on.
Your television, if that's what you have us on.
There.
Forget it. All I'm getting is echoes. They don't stay long.
Let them speak again. Go ahead and speak again. Let's see if we get an echo on this side.
And let's see if we can get an echo on this side. And this is F1.
Go ahead, please.
This is F1. Go ahead, please. F1. This is F1. Go ahead, please. F1. This is F1.
Evelyn, we can hear you, so you can go ahead and just make your comment now.
So you can go ahead and just make your comment now. Okay, I cannot hear you because it's echoing. I cannot hear you because it's echoing.
Evelyn, we can hear you, so just go ahead and make your comment. You're crystal clear. Go right ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Evelyn, we can hear you. Go ahead and make your comment.
All right. Yes, Evelyn, we can hear you. Go ahead and make your comment. How many times did you tell you make the comment? How many times did you tell you make the comment? Okay. I don't think the review period was long enough. It was only from the 28th to the 12th. Can't talk over my own voice. Hang it up.
Okay, she is no longer on the system.
Is there any other further public comment? Annabelle, is there any other comments?
We need to now,
We have to pause, I
Pause
understand
it.
that, but we don't have to pause it completely. If there's any additional comments,
correct,
we can continue on, but
Correct.
I cannot close the public hearing until I get her back to speak.
Absolutely.
And whether we could call her directly and get that would be appreciative. So let's continue on with the public hearing until such time as that we get her back, or we just postpone this meeting to another week.
There is no one else. There's no one else wishing to comment on Zoom. We did not receive any written comments for this item.
Thank you. Can you call her directly and have her turn off her television or her computer that has the broadcast of the council meeting?
You might have to restate her questions so that they can hear it on Zoom.
You have the hammer rudder dance. You know the drill.
Evelyn, this is Sean at the city council meeting. Are you there? Anyone there?
The question I heard was the length of time for it was still going to be in for public.
You have the hammer rudder dance. You know the drill.
All right, this meeting is now in recess until such time as we can reestablish.
Did we adopt that though?
Not have a hybrid meeting.
Wait, the mics are open.
I'm wrong, I'll just keep going.
You're correct. As soon as we get back online, and you will again repeat what we are going to do so everyone understands. And as long as you have consensus with the council to make that change on camera and while we're recording. So we're on there. Okay. Okay, so. We're live.
We're resuming the meeting for the City Council LRA Board for City of Riverbank. Since we can change the agenda will continue on with the other items until such time as we can either reestablish communications with the party that we lost, or if we cannot, we will stop the meeting at the end of the last item and continue the meeting until such time as we can establish. And I think we also have to consider whether or not we want to do a hybrid meeting in the future. So at this time, item 10.1, the public hearing is continued to the end of the meeting. I'm not going to close it, just in case we can get some. I'd like any objections from the council be known now. Seeing no objection from the council, we're going to proceed to new business with item 11.1, a resolution approving a subdivision improvement agreement for Countryside 2 with McRoy-Welber Communities and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This item is a routine item that, if we could, we would probably agendize it on consent, but it's required because of not only is it a contractual arrangement, but it includes large dollar figures, us to actually have some staff report and discussion on it. So, as you know, Countryside subdivision is split into 3 phases. Phase 1 is mostly complete at this point, or a long way towards it. Countryside 2, which is located, I believe, just to the south of the current development, is currently in site prep work and have created the precursors to installing major infrastructure. And so in advance of any final map consideration, which is actually the next item on your agenda, a subdivision improvement agreement is required by our municipal code. This is essentially an agreement that's tailored to address 3 or 4 main items. One is to outline in very clear detail the work that is going to be required by the city of Riverbank to achieve their final map from a public works and engineering perspective. In addition to that, it provides a cost estimate, which has been independently verified by our city engineer, of the cost of those improvements, and that figure is $868,000 in change. The subdivision improvement agreement basically sets forth a security bond for the faithful performance and an amount equal to 100% of the estimated cost of the improvements, and then a second security is required for the payment of contractors, subcontractors, and rental equipment, labor, et cetera, to ensure that work is done. These are essentially insurance measures that the city puts into place so that if there was to be a significant downturn in the economy or the developer walked away from the project, we would have funding to be able to complete out that subdivision, at least the public improvements. So that really sums up the subdivision improvement agreement, which is attached to your agenda, and it follows the same form that has been used under the last 3 or 4 that you've approved, most recently in Crossroads West. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the city manager on the McRoy-Welber Communities, Countryside 2? Saying none, are there any comments from the public on item 11.1, Countryside 2? Are there any public comments from the electronic world?
There is no one wishing to speak, and there were no written comments received on this item.
Okay. I bring 11.1 back to the council for consideration.
I move that we accept the resolution as so stated.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve item 11.1 and a second.
Council members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Uribe,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 11.2, a resolution approving final map 05-2021 for McRoy Welber Communities for Countryside 2, 6036 Claus Road, and 6073 Central Avenue, APN 062-022-019 and 062-022-022.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Our Associate Planner Gabriel's here this evening, and he's going to step you through this second half to this item, which is the final map.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
Good evening.
And this is concerning the final map approval for Countryside 2, which comprises of 2 parcels on 9.36 acres. And as Sean mentioned, it's for 40 single-family units, and right now the subject site is undergoing improvements, infrastructure improvements for the subject subdivision. And this is a recap, a brief history of the project approvals for this subdivision. It was initially approved in 2005, and back then it was called the Hayes 4 project, and a tentative map was approved in 2005. And back then it was for 88 units. And then continuing with the project approvals, in 2006, a vesting tentative map was approved for the Hayes 4 project. And then also at the same time, in November 27, 2006, it was also approved and determined to be a 2-phase subdivision. And then more recently, a few years ago, about 4 years ago, a development agreement was approved for this subdivision, which clarified the tentative map conditions of approval and also extended the map life. And then more recently, in July of last year, the architectural site plan review was approved for Countryside 1 and Countryside 2. And this is the assessor's map, as Sean mentioned. It's 2 parcels, and then it's between Central and Claus Avenue. And this is an area of the subject site. To the northeast of it is Countryside 1. To the southeast would be the future Countryside 3. And southwest of this project is Riverbank Enclave, which staff is also working on the final map with the applicant. And this is the initial tentative map that was approved in 2005. And this is the current proposed final map for this subdivision. And staff also decided to provide some conceptual renderings of the elevations, so City Council has an idea of what kind of models and types of homes we'll get out there on in this subdivision project. And they're doing 3 different types: craftsman, cottage, and farmhouse are the different types of homes. There will be 4 different models, and square footage of these homes will range from 1,772 square feet to about 2,142 square feet. And the project is consistent with CEQA. And staff's recommendation is that the City Council approve this final map.
Are there any questions before we move to the public? When do you intend to move dirt?
Actually, DRIT's already moving on the subdivision for the some of the infrastructure improvements for this project. Concurrently, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I like approving something and it's going to get built the next day. Any questions? Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask for any comments from the public on item 11.2, the final map. Do we have any public comments from the Zoom audience?
There is no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments on this item.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the City Council for consideration.
Make a motion, we approve item 11.2.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second on item 11.2.
Council members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Uribe, Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much, and good luck on your development.
Thank you.
Item 11.3, a resolution approving an amendment to the master subscription agreement extending the current master subscription agreement for the period of 5 years for the lease, operation, and support services for a license plate reader and security camera system within Telesite LLC.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm going to make this simple and easy because the agreement is fairly simple and easy. So as Council's aware, in late 2018 and early 2019, the City Council directed the installation and agreement with Intellisite for a license plate reader and security camera pilot program in Riverbank. And back then it started off with about a half a dozen locations, and over time the program has expanded to address almost every entrance and exit of note within the community, as well as a number of our public spaces that we have consistent vandalism and minor crime occurring in. And the system, as council may recall, is fairly high tech. It provides our police services department a number of tools to use to follow up on investigations and missing persons and a variety of other services that they already provide, and it really acts as a force multiplier for our community. I want to make it very clear, because this gets brought up from time to time, that Riverbank Police Services is the only department within the city that has access to the system. They do not actively monitor it because, as council knows, we have a very small staff, and it was just simply not be efficient to have somebody sitting and watching cameras all day long. It's used as an additive tool, and there's a number of examples, and in a minute I'm going to ask Chief to come up and give a few of things that we've been able to address and or solve where without this system we may not have had that. Currently, the system has 32 cameras throughout the city. Up on the map on the big screen, you can see locational information. Some of those sites have multiple cameras on one pole, depending on angles and whether it's a license plate reader or just a camera monitoring device. And so a few months ago, Intellisite contacted me because we had been on a year-to-year agreement with them because, council may recall, initially we wanted to just sort of wade into this and figure out how it was going to work for us. As the system has become much more successful than we ever thought, we've been contacted by, Chief's been contacted by many agencies. I've been contacted by at least a dozen, wanting to know more about our system, wanting to take a look at it, wanting to mimic it in their own communities. So it's one of many things that we were first to the table on, and it's now you're starting to see them in a lot of other communities. Additionally, there's some questions that get brought up from time to time about, well, who do you share this data with? The answer to that question is no one. It's used only for law enforcement purposes and in the course of a actual law enforcement investigation. Anyone who logs in to look at data within the Chief's department has a unique screen name and identifier, and they're trackable. So if there was ever a question of whether somebody was looking things up that wasn't part of an investigation, that's all something that can be tracked back and audited if necessary. On to the agreement. Well, actually, maybe, Chief, before I do that, why don't you share a few examples?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, first, I think it's very important that you understand that privacy is the number one concern for the community, and it is for me as well as you. It's important that we maintain the privacy of our community, and the cameras are not used for that. They're used for safety and security of our community. They're routinely used. We use these cameras more and more as we have crimes to solve. We use it more as a reactive tool to go back after the fact to find out what happened. They're used for things that aren't always criminal in nature. The one example that I love using is we actually located a missing elderly person with this camera system. We received a call that she had walked away from her home and got into a vehicle, and then we were able to track the vehicle license plate number, and it came to a successful conclusion within about 30 minutes. Just this past Cheese and Wine, IntelliSite came in and they helped us with the safety and security of that event as well, where it was a force multiplier. We have a large crowd, we have lots of people in attendance, and we can quickly scan the crowd and look for any potential problems and head them off before they happen. IntelliSite has been a great company to work with. They're very proactive, very easy to get a hold of, and we have a great relationship with them. And this system, I would say traffic accidents is something else that's routinely used for us, right? We have traffic accidents, not really sure who is at fault, but we can go back and look at the camera footage and find out what happened. And we've been bringing them into our community spaces, such as our parks and skate parks, and that has also helped solve numerous crimes. And also, I believe it gives the community a peace of mind when they're out in the neighborhoods, in the parks, knowing that they are being monitored if something were to happen, that it helps us solve those crimes. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. So when I was contacted by IntelliSite, from a city manager perspective, when any vendor contacts you to renegotiate an agreement, you avoid their phone calls until they give up, as usually that means the number is increasing. But Ava Thomas, who's in the audience today, kept on me, and eventually I came to find out that I was mistaken. IntelliSite has proposed special pricing for us in exchange for a longer-term agreement than a year-to-year agreement. The pricing that they have proposed is approximately $18,900 less than we currently pay. So we pay around just under $100,000 a year, and that'll drop to almost $81,000 annually. The reason we're getting that special pricing is we're agreeing to a longer-term commitment with IntelliSite, and in addition to lower pricing, we also get the benefit of having upgrades made to all of our camera systems. They're going to be installing new sensors that create, I think I'm saying this right, a low power, wide ranging network amongst the cameras. And there's a variety of other little tools that we can add in as we move along with this program, whether they be air quality sensors, whether they be temperature sensors, whether they be shot spotters. The possibilities are endless. It also comes with an upgrade to the user interface and their artificial intelligence, just giving more tools and opportunities for our officers to use it in the course of their jobs. The only risk that I have to inform the council of with regard to the contract that's been proposed, and the city attorney and I have gone through it, is that part of that 5-year agreement is that if the city should choose at some point during the next 5-year period to exit the agreement, whether we feel like we can't afford it or we decide we don't like cameras anymore, for any reason that's not a result of IntelliSite not providing the service, we would pay the remainder of that year that we give notice in the next years. So the exposure is, at worst, $160,000 exposure. If you gave notice at the beginning of a year, you pay essentially 2 years. That said, this has become an integral part to our law enforcement program. It's paid for through our public benefit. We will be saving money over our current cost in the public benefit fund. It's something we budget for on a yearly basis, and we're very, very proud that of the number of years we've been in this program, the program has cost the general fund $0. So it's all a result of our cannabis revenues. So staff's comfortable recommending this, given that we have this relationship with IntelliSite and are interested in continuing to see it through. One last thing, there's 1 to 2 sites that we probably will recommend be added as we move forward. And the benefit to this agreement is you get unit pricing. So you essentially get, that preferred customer pricing to add those. One location that we talked about just recently is Castleberg Park, which is having a lot of issues with vandalism currently. And another one we're looking at is Estelle and Patterson, which is over by the Riverbank Language Academy, and it's one of the places we don't currently have eyes. And Chief's kind of always evaluating where there might be another need, probably also in Crossroads. And one of the things we're working on with some other proposed developments is working in some options for our development agreements where developers will actually pay for some of this service so that we make sure we're getting them into those areas we need them. So we'd like to recommend approval, and the team from IntelliSite is here, the chief's here, I'm here. We'll be happy to answer anything you'd like to know.
Sean, that was going to be my question to ask about if we do find that we need extra cameras in different places. How is that going to affect the new agreement?
We just add those to, literally it's as simple as the chief calling and saying, hey, I'd like to add a license plate reader at X intersection. They schedule it. That unit price gets added because it's the same amount per camera, and it filters into this 5-year agreement. It doesn't extend it another 5 years. It comes
and
into
the new tools that you say are available, is that an additional cost or is that built in?
Some of them are things that come with the full package. My understanding, and Ava, you can correct me, is that if we wanted to add something more sophisticated, like say, for example, ShotSpotter, and if people don't know what that is in the public, that's a system that basically can hear gunshots and then triangulate where they generally are. That is a hardware upgrade, and so would have some additional cost, but again, we get that long-term pricing that we wouldn't get under a year-to-year contract. Am I pretty much right?
Okay, thank you.
Are there notifications to communities around where these cameras are installed?
Yeah, so we haven't put them in any, with 2 exceptions, we haven't really put them in any urbanized areas where people's homes are. The 2 exceptions to that are River Cove, which those folks were aware that we were doing that because, in fact, it was one of their ideas. They've been dealing with so many problems there. And the other one is on Terminal in Kentucky, and that is kind of placed at an intersection. So if we were to put one, let's say, for example, in a park that we try never to set them up in a way that the cameras are going to be watching anyone's private dwelling spaces. They're just for public areas. But let's just say that it couldn't be avoided that some homes in the background were going to be in the thing. We would for sure notify them. The other thing we do is all of these locations, you've probably seen around town, have these big, huge boxes with our logo on them and flashing blue lights. So it's really clear to everybody what it is, why it's there. And Chief gets questions, and I get questions periodically if maybe someone hasn't heard about the program, and we're happy to show them how it works. People, I think members of the public have probably even come into your office and seen it, right, Chief?
Yeah, that's true. We actually used it at one of our examples at our community barbecue. We displayed some of the images from the skate park to show what it would look like if it came into Castleberg Park so they could understand what kind of view we have from our cameras. I have received calls from the public asking if the camera near their area was watching their houses. I explained that it was not, even brought them in to look at our camera footage to see that it was not.
Plus, there's filters that are available that if you cannot help but have it covering one area, the filter will block out anything that could be a privacy issue.
That's correct.
Which is a great key to that item, which I appreciate.
John, I'd just like to say that I think our public safety money that we're getting has really helped us do this without really bothering our general fund. And I think it's just a totally great thing because this is the future. and I think it's helping the law enforcement do better. We started out with about 5 or 6 cameras, and we've got a lot more than that now. And I think it's quite successful, and I'm very proud that we're using that money to help take care of it. Thank you.
Plus, in the future, I'd like to see air quality through certain parts of the city, especially near schools, that we can relay directly. And you're whispering, saying that we're going to do that? Okay.
I believe it's Squire Wells, yes.
Okay, now that has to meet the Air Quality Board standards. Are we close to that?
That I would have to get back on you. I just installed the hardware. I'm not part of the development team.
Yeah, we were going to have the Air Board do a test comparison, but they never did.
Okay. I can bring that back up.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay. Any other comments before we open it to the public? Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Anyone from the Zoom audience wishing to speak?
There is no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments on this item.
Thank you. I'm bringing it back to the council for consideration of 11.3.
I'll make a motion to approve item 11.3.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve and a second for 11.3. Roll call.
Council members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Uribe,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Before we go to 11.4, could we try calling Evelyn again? Okay, we're going to proceed to item 11.4, a resolution proclaiming a local emergency and authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of the city of Riverbank pursuant to Assembly Bill 361 and Brown Act provision.
Thank you, Mayor. Our city attorney is going to step you through this AB 361 and what it means for us.
That's your option, actually. You can a motion to drop the item or make a motion to oppose the staff recommendations in order at any time. So I just want to point that out. Yeah, I would like to talk about it at the end as it relates to our continued public hearing.
Okay. Now, AB 361 allows us to, if we so desire, declare an emergency to continue with teleconferencing. If we say this is an emergency and we have one council member outside that wants to teleconference in, then we must have it allowed for the public. If I'm not mistaken, if we have it, we'll open it up, even though we have declared an emergency, but we're not going to use the telecommunication. We don't have to, and the public is welcome to come here as long as we determine that taking proper measures, including vaccination and mask, social distancing, that their health is not in jeopardy.
That's correct.
Okay?
So
if I'm not mistaken on this AB 361, that if we declare it not an emergency this month, we can declare it an emergency either at the next meeting, if we so desire, or a subsequent month.
you could, and once you do that, you have to continue to do that every 30 days thereafter as well.
That's correct. That's if we declare it an emergency.
Right. Once you declare an emergency.
Okay.
Correct.
So we determine whether or not it is an emergency as a legislative body.
Yes.
The state is allowing us to have that option.
Correct. You determine whether you believe there's an imminent threat to health and safety by having in-person meetings.
Annabelle, do you disagree with that? I saw you shake your head.
I'm sorry. Well, as I'm reading it, the local agency must determine by majority vote that meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees. It's not asking you whether you're declaring a state of emergency. It's whether you're
Right.
declaring whether
It's a threat to health and safety.
if the meeting would be risky, would be a risk factor to the health or safety of attendees. That's what.
That's the same thing I said.
Well, the state, well, it could be confused because we were talking that the state the governor declared a state of emergency. Then we have our local official who provided that letter to us, the county, that they recommended social distancing and other measures.
Right.
Okay, that's, but now from what I understand it, as a body, you will determine whether, if there is a risk, whether we would provide that extra step in providing Zoom for people to continue to participate in your meetings.
As well as council members.
Yes, as well as council members.
And the idea is to allow that participation. You know, you have the problem of technology, but conversely, it allows you to stay home and participate. So that's kind of the trade-off.
That's true. And if we decide that we're going to allow one of the members of the body to remain at home Zooming, we must now allow the public to participate in the same manner.
Yes, and the difference for the elected officials is you don't have to post the meeting at your house like you do now under the Brown Act, and allow the public an opportunity to comment at that place, you know, which would be your homes. So.
Okay.
So my clarification was that you're not exactly declaring an emergency. What you're wanting to do is declare whether there would be a risk for the public to come here in person and attend.
If the state of we're saying the same. If the state emergency due to COVID, you find under that it's a risk locally, then you allow the ability to have the hybrid meetings based on that.
Right, and we are determined by the majority, determining the majority vote whether meetings in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees, and during a proclaimed state of emergency, which we would have to proclaim, when the legislative body has determined that the meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health and safety of attendees as provided, which means if we're going to determine that, then we shouldn't meet in person.
However, the whole premise of this AB 361 was to allow the public to join and participate via another avenue electronically, should they
we determine that's necessary.
Mayor, you raise a good point, which also gets to the issue of what happened here tonight, and that is somebody could theoretically, scuttle a project by saying, "Oh, I lost connection."
I'm not suggesting that is what happened.
No, I'm not, I realize that, but I'm saying you raise the point of, well, it's dangerous, right? Then why should anybody be here? That point that you raised. Then conversely, anybody could scuttle the meeting, an item by just saying, "Oh, sorry, I can't hear you." Again, not that that's what happened tonight. And it does say, I went back and looked, and this was the comment I wanted to say related to your continued item. And regarding the technology issues, stop the meeting until public access is restored in the event of a service disruption, on our end that prevents a local agency from broadcasting.
True.
So it's not somebody dropping off. So I do again still believe you're good on that, and you would not have to redo the next item based on the fact that Ms. Halbert was not able to reconnect.
Okay, this is tough, in what we have the option to continue in the Zoom land, if we so determine, but we have to declare it as a health issue for anybody meeting, to allow that to take place. And right now, I feel confident, and I hope the people in attendance right now feel confident that they are safe here in this chamber.
I think I'm gonna agree with you, Mayor. I think there's other things we can do as far as safety measures here in person. So I'm gonna, if I can make the motion already, I'll make the motion.
Let's get public input, please.
Absolutely. So I'll be leaning towards motion to oppose.
Thank you. Any other comments?
We might, just because of what happened tonight, try to inform the public that they can't have other electronic devices when they call in, because that's, I think, was part of the problem tonight. And we need to put it in there. Don't have any of your TVs or computers going on when you're trying to talk to us this way, because it just doesn't work. It interferes.
She has to put my mic on. Okay, thank you. It doesn't work. That when someone does call in, fortunately, we did have Miss Talbert's Halbert, whatever her last name is, Evelyn, anyway. We did have her phone number. So if it was not her and it was someone else, we didn't have their phone number, I think that we need to have a way so that when they do call in, that they register with their phone number so that we have that on hand in case we have to call them back due to technical difficulties.
I believe that's specifically forbidden under the act of getting any information at all, especially name, phone number.
You can ask for it, but you can't require it, right?
Okay, I'll buy that until I reread it. Because I thought you weren't allowed to.
I thought you were talking about under the Brown Act, per se.
No, under the Brown Act, that's different. Under AB 361, you cannot require it.
Correct.
But I think that we should give them the option to be able to do that, because if they get...
Yeah, we can give them the option, but...
Yeah, I think we should.
We're not going to make it, and nor should we even state that we want it. We just said this is a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes on till January 2024.
AB 361 does mention third-party service registration. If you do participate, the council must provide adequate time during the comment period for users to register, and may not close the registration comment period until the comment period has elapsed. So part of this also in your decision is to establish a comment period. And it mentions in here that the city council can establish a comment period for the items. So we leave it open and we allow people to have the opportunity or take the time to connect with us.
Okay. So let's say what happened tonight, do I have to continue that item or the meeting if we should lose that, or is it our loss? Because the way I read it was the loss of, not our loss of. It's just the loss.
Yeah.
It's about the service loss.
Right. From our side, yeah.
Not from their side.
Right. And I just want to add too that if you don't pass this, then you won't have to worry about a lot of these things, because you won't have the Zoom option, a hybrid option starting at the next meeting.
Okay. If we do not pass this, or can we modify it to where we allow electronic public comment?
Yes, and the city clerk would then read that into the record, though.
Is that permissible, Annabelle?
What? I wasn't sure what you asked.
Okay, instead of saying that we're declaring this as a health emergency, instead of saying we're going to offer Zoom, but if we could offer public comment, either electronically or via phone or whatever, some type of, without going to the Zoom. Or
without going to the Zoom, what other avenue? Are you talking about emails? I mean, we already do that.
Or how about I don't know.
A phone call, you mean?
You really have to do it through Zoom or a similar platform.
Yeah,
Practically speaking.
yes.
So the third-party registration is also not, cannot be mandated?
No, it's not. We can, that would be through a different avenue to have people register. But,
It's not to give their comment, it's to use the system.
it's to use the system. And when you're doing that, it's basically telling people, you have to give me your information. And so that may, have people not join because they don't want to be identified or they don't want to give their information to us. Or
But I guess I'm weighing both because I do think it's important to have another avenue to connect. So yeah.
You know, one of the things the council could do, and I hate using a sports analogy, but you could punt here. And
I'd like to continue this, but I'm going to have to ask that.
If you punted, what we would recommend you do is pass this so Zoom is still available next meeting, because we could put it on next meeting. Next meeting doesn't require, you don't have to relook at this again for 30 days, but we could talk a little bit more about Zoom. I will share that Annabelle and I speak to a lot of people all the time that want to make comment, and I frequently, and I'm sure she does too, recommend that, like, look, if you're going to do it via Zoom, you should really know how to use the system. Otherwise, write us something and get it to us by 5 the day of the city council meeting. I mean, by email or mail, if you can't come in person. So we do try to recommend that, you not just depend on that one service, because I think everybody in this room has been on a Zoom that's failed or dropped off or whatever from time to time.
Okay, public comment, please. Any public comment?
There is no one wishing to speak.
Okay, bringing it back. I think for the council to move forward, that we can take this up again at the next meeting, do it, pass conditionally of this. And then the league has some great information on it, where I got most of my information. That the council do their own independent research and come up with their own conclusion, and we'll discuss it one more time at the next meeting on how we're going to proceed. Is that okay with the staff?
Yes, but the assembly staff and the Senate staff even are still debating a lot of this.
It applies to us, but not to them. Wonder why.
Yeah.
Okay, here's how I'm going to make this motion. I'd like to approve item 11.4 conditionally to have further discussions at our next council meeting, which is October 26th, for whether or not that we permanently accept it, which we have to redo every month, or we reject it.
I'll second it.
You got that, Annabelle?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Council members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Uribe,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
I'm going to move back to item 10.1, public hearing. I'm going to reopen the public hearing. Would you please, is there any other public comments, Annabelle, for item 10.1?
For item 10.1. Oh. No, there is no one wishing to speak.
Can you try the phone number one more time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that does it. At this time, I'm closing public hearing, bringing it back to the council for consideration. And we will have an additional public hearing on this. Anybody?
Make a motion to approve item 10.1.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second on item 10.1.
Council members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Uribe,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sanchez, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. We'll probably see you in about another couple of weeks. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll see you back here.
Yep, 26, thank you.
Sorry about that, council. I don't know. Okay, item 12, staff comments.
Thank you very much, Mayor. A couple items. Just on behalf of staff, we'd like to send our sympathies to Alan Trawick's family. We all knew him, especially those staff here that have worked here for a long time, knew Alan really well, and it was very common to see him walking around the downtown area, even into his 90s. And I always found him to be a very kind person, and sort of by the time I knew him, a very gentle person, and so he'll be missed. And we did lower the flags to half-mast in his memory yesterday, and we will be extending our sympathies on behalf of the organization to his family. Also, just wanted to thank the staff and police services for wine and cheese. If you were out this weekend, you saw that we've revived the festival after a year's dormancy, and we're going to have a report to council to discuss what we think went right and what we think needs to be improved. And but given that we're in the midst of a pandemic, it was pleasant to see people out this last weekend. And then finally, just a quick update on tax sharing. I can't go into specific detail, but I can tell you that I feel very good about getting an agreement completed in short order, that we're further along in negotiations with the county than we ever have been in my time here. So we'll hopefully be reporting back to you on that. And I think that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hernandez?
Yeah, I had a meeting or a house meeting with the promotoras and practiced my Zumba a little bit with them. But it was great meeting the group, and they're really excited to be involved in the Riverbank community. And continuing to work with them, especially, I did invite them to tonight's meeting to celebrate the proclamation with us, so they were excited to hear about that, even though they couldn't make it. And I want to welcome Brian Marks to our meeting from Love Stanislaus County, and just to remind you all that Love Riverbank will continue in the spring.
Did you do Love Stanislaus this last weekend? We're going to have to figure out some other way, because it'd be difficult to do a city project right in the middle of cheese and wine.
That was a one-time thing because of the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Campbell.
I'd just like to take a moment to thank the Eagle Scout that took it upon himself to paint the rocket out at Jacob Myers Park. It saved the Friends of Jacob Myers Park a bunch of money. They kept looking to get something done, and just about at the last moment, it was going to cost us $10,000, and the Eagle Scout came forward, and he did it very quickly, and it's beautiful, and it's in good shape now.
Thank you. Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Our city manager and we had the pleasure of speaking to a group of realtors to give them some updates of the expected growth in our city. They wanted to know where did the name of the City of Action came from, so we let them know, hey, we're on the move. And also our past, too. And then just a update about Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. Celebration will be October 29th at our Del Rio Plaza across the street. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So I just kind of want to highlight, yesterday was Indigenous Peoples Day. just a day to honor the rich culture of our nation's first people. And it was nice to officially see it officially recognized by a sitting president, so that was kind of cool. Central Valley Foster Care is a new organization located in our downtown. They've teamed up with our Senator Eggman to do a coat and hoodie drive that started yesterday, the 11th, and it'll run till the 26th. They've placed 3 locations. One will be at Central Valley Foster Care. The other one will be at Riverbank Police Department. Thank you, Chief, for that. And the third location will be here at City Hall. The time frames to drop off any donations will be from 9 to 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to welcome again Tammy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking through this entire meeting. You weren't obligated today, but you will be in the future. Again, I want to thank the staff with the cheese and wine. That was well done. Yes, we have some lessons learned. And, you know, we had new vendor taking care of it, or organizer. And, you know, everybody has to learn, and we'll learn together as we move forward. The movement on the industrial complex, the LRA, is being slowed down a little bit because of U.S. EPA tying groundwater with some of the transfers at the faucet, especially with 2 and 2A, properties 2 and 2A. 2A has some groundwater contamination, which doesn't affect the surface, but it will affect the disposing of that property in the future, which means only a government agency can take it if it's at faucet. Secretary Rayhauser is trying to get some agreement with the U.S. EPA and Army Legal to move it along and have it transferred in June of next year. It looks like it's going to be September if this is not torn or separated. Congressman Harder has been involved with it too. If we don't hear positive by the end of this week, we'll be engaging the congressman again. In fact, the congressman, I want to thank him. He personally came down here to sit and talk with us, which I thought was extremely good on his shortened schedule, because he only had a couple days to be here before he went back to D.C. So with that, we're not going to go into closed session, but closed session is on the agenda. So at this time, any member from the public may comment up to 3 minutes on the closed session item. The item is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 549569 Bravo, number of case, 1 potential case. Do we have any public comment on the closed session?
There are no public comments.
Okay. At this time, we are going to adjourn. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, October 26th at 6 p.m. Thank you, and have a good evening.
You have to guess what the closed session item is. Go ahead.